You very much either.
Hello, Mr. Kithmeyer.
Oh, Miss Clayton, I want...
Grandpa, do you mind?
Do I mind what?
Standards of vulgarity have changed over the years, yet some actresses were so uninhibited in their behavior and style that they remain shocking even by today's standards. These 20 stars nearly brought Hollywood to its knees with their bold behavior and unabashed openness. And number 11 will leave you speechless. Mae West. Mae West was labeled vulgar because she dared to be unusually bold during an era of modesty. In the early 1930s, actresses typically spoke politely and dressed conservatively on screen, but West broke the mold. She wrote her own play, Diamond Lil, and later starred in films wearing tight satin gowns, speaking in a slow, teasing voice, and filling her dialogue with clever double entendres. Parent-teacher groups and church leaders warned her jokes would corrupt public morals. The new Hollywood production code even cited her films as evidence that stricter regulations were needed. One Boston radio station pulled her sketch for being too suggestive. Rather than back down, West embraced uproar, famously quipping that censorship made her wealthy, since every complaint boosted her box office appeal. Her fearless style turned backlash into branding, but also cemented her reputation as the most vulgar star of her time. Jean Harlow. Before Marilyn's iconic white dress moment, Jean Harlow stunned 1930s audiences with her platinum blonde hair and sensual presence. MGM bleached her hair to an icy shimmer and dressed her in silk slips. In films like Red-Headed Woman and Dinner at 8, Harlow didn't whisper shots land like bullets, calling men suckers and bosses big boy. Critics claimed her language belonged on the docks, not in theaters. Newsweek called her the girl who made sin shimmer. In Red-Headed Woman, she played a secretary who seduces her married boss, punches his wife, and seduces nearly everyone else, complete with a scene where she locks a door and tosses the key. Though censors cut frames, fans flooded theaters, asked how she felt about being called vulgar. Harlow chuckled, "Is that today's word? Yesterday they called me something worse." Off-screen, her backless gowns and nights out made headlines, but co-stars noted her warmth and politeness between takes. The contradiction fascinated the public, a Hollywood bad girl with perfect manners. Harlow's untimely death at 26 frowsy that image in time eternally youthful, dangerously alluring, and forever whispered about for breaking the mold. Thea Bara. In 1915, during the silent film era, headlines roared even if the movies didn't. Enter Theodosia Goodman, reinvented as Thea Bara. Publicists claimed her name was an anagram for Arab death. In A Fool There Was, she lounged in a deck chair with smoky eyes, luring a married man to ruin. One title card warned, "Kiss me, my fool," and audiences had never seen a woman wield such control. Her posters draped her in snakeskin and tiger pelts. Church bulletins called her satanic and vulgar, while Bara herself was soft-spoken. Fox Studios fueled the mystique with photo shoots featuring occult props. Small-town theaters sometimes refused to show her films due to parish protests, but that didn't stop young fans from flocking in. Though few of her films remain, her dark eyes, bare arms, and overt wickedness carved the vamp archetype into pop culture. A woman to free with her charm. By the 1920s, tastes shifted to flappers, but every femme fatale owes Bar her slow, dangerous smile was silent cinema's first whisper of scandal. Marlene Dietrich. Imagine a Berlin cabaret shrouded in fog. Through it comes a husky voice, Marlene Dietrich, singing Falling in Love Again. When she came to Hollywood, she brought tuxedos, top hats, and a defiant disregard for rules. In Morocco 1930, she kisses a woman and tips her hat to the shocked men nearby, an act that many states tried and failed to censor. In Shanghai Express, she donned a white gorilla sleeved gown and purred lines thick with innuendo. Critics called her immoral, and newspapers used vulgar as code for her gender-fluid fashion. Dietrich didn't care. "Clothes have no sex," she said. Off-screen, her dinner parties served caviar next to sausages, mixing refinement with roughness. During WWII, she performed in a suit for Allied troops near the front lines. Moralists called her indecent. To soldiers, she was a hero. Dietrich outlasted the label vulgar by transforming accusations into other smirk. Her cutaway jackets and her courage redrew the boundaries of glamour. Jane Mansfield. If Marilyn was Hollywood champagne, Jane Mansfield was its fizzy, soda-sweet, loud, and unpredictable. In the 1950s, she understood publicity better than her press agents. At one dinner, Her dress accidentally popped open, triggering a flood of flashbulbs. The press dubbed her Queen of Wardrobe, malfunctions all in the polite lingo of the 1950s. That meant vulgar. In The Girl Can Help It, milk bottles explode as she struts past. Subtle she was not. Britain once banned her cabaret act for indecency, and the Catholic Legion of Decency protested her film Promises for featuring Hollywood's first nude scenes from a major star. Mansfield shrugged it off with a grin, traveling with a heart-shaped bathtub and a chihuahua named Galena Houdini. Off camera, she read classical philosophy and spoke 5 languages, charming reporters expecting fluff. Still, the bad taste label stuck, especially with designers who measured her gowns in skin inches, not fabric yards. Her death in a 1967 car crash ended the story early, but her image remains pink light, playful wit, and proof that being vulgar might just mean having more fun than the rest. Hedy Lamarr, before she revolutionized technology, Hedy Lamarr shocked audiences in Ecstasy 1933 with a skinny-dipping scene and a heavily implied moment of intimacy, though it was made before she reached Hollywood. U.S. Customs nearly banned it for obscenity. The Vatican labeled the film vulgar art. When MGM introduced her in America, studio head Louis B. Mayer told the press she was in a naughty European picture, but here she will be a lady. Even so, her gaze in Algiers and Samson and Tallulah see forbidden allure. Off-screen, she scandalized partygoers by discussing love, size, and male ego off-limit subjects for women of the 1940s. During WWII, she co-invented frequency-hopping tech used in modern Bluetooth, but journalists focused on her love life. Lamarr later said, "Any girl can be glamorous. All she has to do is stand still and look stupid." The irony, she never stood still, never lacked brilliance, and never truly escaped the stain of being called vulgar. Her legacy today merges genius with glamour, a warning that society often mocks what it doesn't understand. Bettie Page, dark bands, dazzling smile, and a leopard print bikini. Bettie Page was the 1950s pinup perfected, but her most infamous photos weren't just playful cheesecake. They appeared in calendars and low-budget shorts that played with playful bondage themes. In 1957, senators even streamed excerpts during an obscenity hearing, clutching their pearls while Page cracked a whip and giggled. The press deemed the footage vulgar filth, claiming it corrupted the youth, but Page had simply responded to a casting call and treated the work like any other modeling gig. Off the set, she volunteered at church and baked cookies for her neighbors, a contrast that baffled moral crusaders. After leaving modeling, she disappeared into a world of religious schools and mental health struggles, nearly forgotten until a 1990s revival rebranded her as a cult icon. Modern fans now see empowerment in her poses, though mid-century critics saw only scandal. Page's story reveals how context reshapes the meaning of the word vulgar. What once triggered Senate panic now decorates coffee mugs and fashion runways. Her shy grin reminds us that controversy often masks a surprisingly gentle soul. Rita Hayworth, cue the Roomba beat and a single satin glove sliding from an upraised arm. Rita Hayworth's dance in Gilda 1946 remains a Hollywood shorthand for slow burn allure. Yet in its time, the routine sparked outrage. She removed just one glove, nothing more, but critics called it a striptease by suggestion and lobbied for censorship. While Life magazine celebrated the scene, parent groups condemned it as vulgar eroticism. Earlier, wartime pinups of Hayworth in a black lace negligee adorned barracks worldwide. Some military chaplains complained the image damaged morale by raising temperatures. Off-screen, she was Margarita Kensinoshi and bookish, practicing dance steps until her shoes wore out. She resented the love goddess image, once admitting, "Man, go to bed with Gilda but wake up with me." Still, producers built every role around her hips slow swirl, reinforcing the idea that her very presence was indecent. Later years, marked by turbulent marriages and early Alzheimer's, softened public judgment, but that single glove remains a 3-minute masterclass in how little it takes for Hollywood to brand a woman as vulgar. Clara Bow. In the Roaring Twenties, Clara Bow was the it girl, but some editors used another word, vulgar. Raised in Brooklyn tenements, Bow brought real street slang to the silent screen, laughing too loud, moving too freely for Victorian sensibilities. In It 1927, she dives headfirst into a department store, display to win a antics that older critics labeled unladylike. Tabloids obsessed over her nights at the Coconut Grove, where she danced the Charleston until dawn, and allegedly raced her car down Sunset Boulevard. Often exaggerated rumors painted her as reckless with language, lovers, and money. Moralists feared she glamorized flapper excess, especially when she posed in swimsuits without stocking scandalous in the 1920s. Yet fans adored her relatable energy. Young women copied her bobbed hair and carefree grin. When talkies arrived, her thick Brooklyn accent drew ridicule, fueling gossip that the Vulgar girl was finished. She retired to a Nevada ranch, raising horses and avoiding cameras. Decades later, historians credit her with injecting film with a modern, unfiltered energy, proving that what was once dismissed as vulgar could later be recognized as cinematic oxygen. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe's image is all soft light and white silk, yet behind the lens lay a fierce battle over taste. In 1951, she wore a gold lame gown so tight she could barely sit. Columnist Earl Wilsardo. Bridget Bardot brought French sunshine to the screen, and in God-Created Woman 1956, her barefoot dancing sent shockwaves through international censors. The Catholic Legion of Decency condemned the film. U.S. mayors threatened bans, headlines labeled Bardot sex on a beach towel, and Variety used the word vulgar more than once. Bardot, unfazed, replied, "I am immaculate, I have nothing to hide." Her topless sunbathing long before it was common fed gossip magazines for years. Paparazzi followed her endlessly, desperate for one more indecent snapshot. Her carefree attitude toward love, affairs, and marriage clashed with 1950s expectations, yet her performances held real emotional depth, especially in Contempt 1963, where a marriage crumbles against sweeping Mediterranean vistas. By the 1970s, Bardot left cinema to rescue animals, channeling her defiant energy into activism. Once the global epitome of vulgar freedom, she swapped bikinis for fiery speeches, proving that the same traits once criticized, like outspokenness and unapologetic sincerity, could power a lifelong passion, simply refocused on four-legged co-stars. Raquel Welch. A single image Raquel Welch in a fur bikini from 1,000,000 years B.C. 1966 decorated teenage bedrooms around the world. Critics, scrambling for adjectives, landed on one: vulgar. She followed up with Myra Breckinridge 1970, a satire so outrageous that Time magazine lamented tastelessness hits its nadir. The film's gender-bending jokes and risque outfits drew fire, and reviewers unfairly blamed Welch for the shock of it, though she had little say over the final cut. Earlier in Lady in Cement, her wet dive entrance prompted Roger Ebert to quip about vulgar exercises and cleavage. Welch challenged the double standard, once saying, "If male heroes can't bear chests, I can't bear shoulders." She pushed to star in comedies and dramas, proving her talent in The Three Musketeers with slapstick swordplay. Decades later, she starred in fitness videos, leotards, and all still deemed too daring for morning TV in some regions. But her poise and charitable work softened those early judgments, revealing a woman who wielded her beauty not to shock, but to chase adventure. Sharon Stone. In 1992, Basic Instinct's interrogation scene turned Sharon Stone into a headline. One quick leg cross, and suddenly the press was in a frenzy. Editorials labeled the moment sleazy, gratuitous, vulgar. State censors debated cutting those few seconds, and some theaters added adults-only warnings, despite the film's R rating. Stone, then relatively unknown, found herself facing moral questions instead of plot ones. She argued that her character flipped the script, a complex woman controlling a room full of men, a direct challenge to decades of female objectification. Still, the vulgar label stuck. Later roles in Sliver and Casino kept the conversation alive, but Stone balanced her on-screen boldness with public efficacy, especially after surviving a life-threatening brain hemorrhage. Her interviews paint a fuller picture: a woman who endured the storm of scandal and used it to speak louder, not shrink away. A thoughtful performer knows that a single provocative choice can shape an entire career for better or worse. Her journey reflects Hollywood's tendency to paint women in broad strokes. Bold becomes indecent, mysterious becomes dangerous, yet Stone endures, proving that intelligence and resilience outlast any one flashbulb moment. Elizabeth Berkley. When Showgirls hit theaters in 1995, critics responded with exceptional harshness, calling it trash, vulgar spectacle, even cinematic career suicide. Elizabeth Berkley, fresh off the teen sitcom Saved by the Bell, suddenly symbolized Hollywood excess. U.S. senators referenced the movie in debates over pornographic content and rating systems. Although the plot focused more on ambition and betrayal than titillation, Berkley faced punchlines on late-night TV and cold shoulders from studios, but she stood firm, declaring that real artists must be willing to risk failure. Over time, Showgirls became a cult classic, its over-the-top style appreciated as satire. Berkley reinvented herself on Broadway and in cabaret, later launching self-esteem workshops for young performers. Looking back, the Vulgar label says more about the 1990s culture wars than about her character. Her story is one of resiliency, a reminder that the industry quick to stamp someone with a scarlet letter may one day rebrand that same story as iconic camp. Madonna. Pop icon Madonna lit up late-night screens in Body of Evidence 1993, complete with candle wax, handcuffs, and in a -17 rating. The MPA cited graphic sexual content, and newspapers accused the Queen of Pop of dragging Hollywood into the gutter. But controversy was nothing new to Madonna. The year before, her 1992 coffee table book, Sex, triggered bookstore boycotts and, paradoxically, a spike in record sales. Critics often ignored her quieter performances, desperately seeking Susan, a league of their own. Focusing instead on the moments that broke taboos, Madonna defended her provocative work as a study in power dynamics, insisting that women should claim agency over desire just as men have for generations. Today, scenes that once shocked seem tame next to the drama available on streaming platforms. Madonna remains a symbol. That Vulgar is often a baton passed from generation to generation, only to be snapped into by the woman it was meant to shame. Angelina Jolie. Long before she stood before the United Nations, Angelina Jolie's starred in Original Sin 2001, a period drama thick with candlelit love scenes. Critics groaned, sweat, steam, and vulgarity, overlooking its noir plot twists. Earlier, Jolie's real-life persona tattoos, vials of blood, and passionate love letters gave tabloids plenty to chew on. She was labeled indecent, yet she channeled that same intensity into global missions, adopting children from war zones and lobbying for refugee rights. Over time, the word vulgar faded, replaced by visionary. Her evolution shows how Hollywood's vocabulary shifts. What once shocked can, in time, inspire. Monica Bellucci. At the 2002 premiere of Irreversible, audience members fled the theater. Some called the film cruel, vulgar, unwatchable. Monica Bellucci, playing the victim of a horrific assault, defended the film as a raw, necessary warning. The controversy centered on one brutal scene, but the label vulgar stuck. Yet Bellucci's earlier work, Malna, The Matrix Reloaded, displayed elegance and fluency in 3 languages. She quoted philosophers at press junkets, breaking every stereotype. Time hasn't dimmed her magnetism. Fashion houses still chase her timeless grace. Critics now revisit Irreversible as a powerful, artistic statement, conceding that vulgarity can lie not in exposing pain, but in pretending it doesn't exist. Bellucci's career challenges audiences to ask who decides what's appropriate and why. Her courage in facing darkness once drew outrage. Today, it demands admiration. Mamie Van Doren. Picture 1950s drive-in theaters, glowing against the dusk, engines humming while Mamie Van Doren shakes across the screen. An untamed youth plot full of chain gangs, farmhands, and rock and roll. Critics called it corny, noisy, occasionally vulgar, fun with an emphasis on vulgar. Universal Studios hired Mamie to rival Monroe and Mansfield, instructing her, "Show the curve every chance you get." She did, donning tight sweaters and sing songs deemed too risque for radio. The studio even gifted her a champagne gold convertible for publicity, telling her to wave like she was blowing kisses. Church bulletins warned that her films glamorized juvenile delinquency. She laughed, "Delinquent? I never even got a parking ticket, just hearts." Off-screen, she entertained troops in Vietnam with routines cleaner than her film roles. In later years, she leaned into satire, appearing in documentaries about censorship. She remained proud that her once scandalous wiggle now seemed almost innocent. Her story proves how style shifts, morals evolve, and yesterday's vulgar becomes tomorrow's nostalgia. From silent-era serpentine jewelry to slow-motion ocean sprints, these 20 women show that the label vulgar is often just a mark on a moving boundary between comfort and curiosity. Each time the line moved, Hollywood's history moved with it, proof that whether politely or provocatively, pushing boundaries is how the silver screen moves forward.